Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. It's been a while, a few weeks now since Maximize Monday has graced your presence. So thank you for the patience. It's a busy time of year for me in our hiring process and everything like that. So missed you guys. Glad to be back. And as you can see, I have a new guest with me. I have Willa joining me to discuss all things job searching. So very excited to have you on. If you're not connected with Willa yet, you should be after listening to this. But if you are, that she offers fantastic insight in terms of the job search and how to stay positive throughout that. So, Willa, thank you so much for taking some time to jump on here with me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. So you've been kind of a beacon of positivity throughout the job search, your own job search, and then offering a lot of insight advice to other people, sharing success stories, providing updates on how your search is going, but most importantly, just kind of sharing the techniques, what's worked for you, what you've changed along the way. And it's not something that people always think to do when they're in their own search. You kind of get one track minded and focused on, what's going on in your world. And you've certainly taken the time to stay aligned with what's going on with other people's searches as well. So, did you know kind of early on that when you started your search that that was something that you were going to do, provide this insight, not just to kind of help yourself, but to help others along the way as also?
No, honestly, I really didn't. If I'm being honest, I didn't expect to be on the job market for as long as I have been. I, by trade, am a counselor. So I equate that to being a connector. I connect people to a lot of different information. If I can save someone a couple of minutes in their couple of minutes, couple of hours, anytime at all, doing whatever it is that they need to do, if I can provide that information to them, why wouldn't I?
Mhm.
If I've gone through it, if I know that knowledge, if I have the experience, why not impart that information to other people to help them make the most informed decision possible? So it started out as motivation for me. If I post it, I have to believe it, I have to follow through with it.
Mhm.
Then people started engaging and liking the content that I was sharing, and it kind of went from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've commented on that in terms of how some of the posts have blown up for you, and you've gotten a lot of engagement, a lot of reactions, people, connecting to what you have to say, reaching out to you, thanking you for, what you're offering during that time, which is a frustrating process just in general, the job search industry. And even more so now because, like you mentioned, it's elongated, it's chaotic, and there's not necessarily things that anyone's doing wrong. So it's tough to find that motivation throughout that. So while I mentioned that you've been kind of that motivator for other people and that the positivity and insight that you're bringing to LinkedIn and to other spaces too, I'm sure what has kind of been the source of motivation for you? How have you kind of kept yourself aligned with what you want to be supportive of others, and how has kind of offering that support helped with that mission as well?
I feel like just like every job search is different, everybody's looking for something different. Every motivator is different. It can be inherently internal, it could be what drives you, it could be family, it could be financial, it could be external, it could be your friends, it could be the lifestyle you're looking for. Um, for me, um, keeping me motivated has really been moving forward to pursue what it is that I want to do with my life. So I always wanted to get a doctorate. That was motivating for me at the back of my mind after I graduated college when I signed up for my master's. In the back of my mind, somewhere subconsciously, it was like, you need to get a doctorate. Towards the end of my doctoral program, it was, what if there's more to life for me than education? What if there's transferable skills that I have that I could see myself using in the corporate sector, which became HR? So it's knowing that I have skills, that I have value to add. That's my motivator. It's also not bottling things up and being able to express those things to my family and friends where needed. Um, but I also think too, one of the things that I'm working on with some of my clients is understanding that you can have two different emotions. You can be positive and optimistic about where things are going, but also feel down that this is the situation, this is where I'm feeling.
Yeah.
um Not every day is going to be a consistent day, but I think just keeping my eye on the prize, which is the job that I'm going to get, I think has really been a good motivator. And also keeping boundaries for myself,
Mhm.
to not get stressed out. Because I feel like we've all been there, whether it's stress, whether it's, minor depression, whether it's complete and utter burnout, right? So for me, staying motivated means after a certain time at night, I don't check LinkedIn. I don't go on LinkedIn. I used to be really engaged in social Saturdays. I try and stay off of LinkedIn on the weekends where possible and treat
Mhm.
it like a job, but not like a typical 9 to 5. And when I put those boundaries in place, I feel like that really helps my motivation stay in place as well.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So, what would you say is kind of that biggest challenge that job seekers are facing right now? Is it just the unknown? Like we had mentioned earlier, no one's necessarily doing anything wrong in their search. It's just kind of a chaotic time. But for myself in the recruiter seat, I'm always looking for ways that I can at least make the experience better. Even if it doesn't lead to a hire to a position, what can I do at least to make it a rewarding experience? Because I know that sometimes people go into interviews, and then they hear nothing back, and that doesn't help them. Sometimes they get the feedback and it's not really stuff that they can use. So what would you say are some things that we can improve on to make the candidate experience one that can ease some of the frustrations as opposed to add to them?
I think acknowledging the fact that this is not a job seeker market, first and foremost, is really important for job seekers to know. It sucks. Like there's no way to say it any other way than it sucks. That being said, I do think things are shifting, so to stay positive. But with that being said, um, the reality is that because it is not a job seekers market, more people are applying to the same positions. I saw a position, whether it's a combination of clicks and applications that had for one position, it was over 12,000 applicants.
Mm.
Again, maybe a combination of both. So in the thousands for the applicant for one position. I mean, positions are extremely competitive. I think that communication really helps. And what do I mean by that? I mean, sometimes it's not realistic for a recruiter to reach out to every single person. I think it's helpful for candidates who may have their hearts set on a particular role to know that they've been rejected from that role. I
Mhm.
feel like one of the trends that I'm noticing a lot lately from companies is when you submit your application, an automated email says, "Thank you for applying. If we choose to move forward with you, we'll let you know that you've moved forward." But some people I feel like really need closure.
Sure.
I think that that's part of the candidate experience.
Mhm.
Uh, so if you apply to however many jobs you apply to a week, is it realistic to log into every single account that you've created for every single role to
Right.
check the status of every position? So I think that recruiters can help with that. I also think that recruiters can help and hiring managers as well, when candidates make it towards later on in the process, right? Communication I think is really helpful, um, and not ghost or leave candidates hanging. Again, every company is going to have their own policy that they adhere to, right, with how much information that they can share with the job seeker. But I
Sure.
think keeping them in the know, on a realistic timeline is really helpful.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm going to bounce around a little on the questions that I sent to you, just because you have just mentioned something, and I want to dig a little bit deeper into that in terms of how you shut things off. Work-life balance from my end when I'm speaking to potential candidates, that tends to be kind of at the top of the list of what are you looking for in your next position. That's the most common response that I get is, I want to be able to separate work and life and not have the two be unified. And so I think that's something that's really lost on job seekers sometimes, because especially if you're currently working full time and then once work ends, you're job searching, and that's a full-time job in of itself. So beyond just taking some time away from LinkedIn, what are some of the other ways that you've tried to prioritize balancing your career aspirations with everything else that you have going on in your day to day?
I think the hardest lesson for me to learn is that when I'm working in a normal full-time capacity, let's hypothesize and say that that's 9 to 5. You're at your job from 9 to 5, minus whatever, lunch breaks, etc.
Sure.
Um, I kind of I started out in that capacity too, right? I sat at the computer, started at 9 o'clock, and then I logged myself out at 5. But it's kind of like being a remote person, like remotely working,
Mhm.
where like there's nobody telling you to stop. So if
Yeah.
you want to keep going, you can keep going. And I felt like just because the market is where the market is, doing that day in and day out was not only not fulfilling, there's nobody on the other end telling you to stop. Your own clock has to tell you to stop.
Mhm.
And for me, that was, it just brought me down, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
Um, so I feel like that was something that was really helpful, was like going back to boundaries, boundary setting. And so what's fulfilling, not literally not doing that from 9 to 5, literally not applying for jobs from 9 to 5. And it's more than just jobs, it's networking too. That's like exactly how you and I met, was
Right.
through networking. So whether that's, trying to add additional networking opportunities, sending messages to recruiters and hiring personnel, networking in the same um, sector that you're in, finding groups that you can join into, or literally doing nothing that has to do with the job search so you could mentally reset. If
Mhm.
that's laundry, if that's going to treat yourself to a cup of coffee outside of your house or apartment, if that's walking your dog multiple times a day, it can be routined. It doesn't have to be routined. And if you're feeling stressed and frustrated, being able to express that to friends, to family, if you need to seek a therapist, having somebody to talk to who has no stake in your life whatsoever. I'm a firm believer. I'm also a clinician, so finding different outlets, working out really helps too.
Mhm.
Um, Anything that you can do to do literally a work-life balance, just understanding that your work is not a 9 to 5 when you don't have a job.
Right.
But for the people that can do it, power to them. I
Right.
find that the most people that I speak to are, struggle with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you're setting me up now for segues to the next question here. So you mentioned networking and you and I connected because you were trying to just take in as much information about different things and not put limitations in yourself. And I think that's important for any job seeker. Obviously, it's good to have, a few positions in mind that you want to take on, but not necessarily close the door on anything before you really know what potentially is out there. No one's aware of all different positions that exist. So through networking, and having these coffee chats, these conversations, how has that kind of changed your career search and helped you in terms of maybe look at different opportunities, explore different options, refine your search based on the feedback you're getting there?
It's been really helpful. Um, Networking, informational interviews have been really helpful, specifically for me. Um, Actually jumping away from me for a second, for anyone, I think they're so valuable, whether you're a job seeker, whether you are pivoting careers like I am, whether you're trying to build your network in a sector. I think it's a great tool literally at any point of your career. You could be an intern, you could be in college, you can, be a high school student doing this, you could be super senior in your career. I think they're so valuable. But for me, as somebody who is pivoting careers, it's been interesting being able to select the career that I'm looking for, the sector that I'm looking for, which is HR.
Mhm.
And I literally have had well over 100 networking calls, and listening to the trajectories that people have had, not only seeing it on their LinkedIn, but having them speak it to me for it to come to life.
Mhm.
And then for me to say to myself internally, can I see myself doing that? Is something that I would really enjoy. And I feel as though through those conversations, I've been able to narrow down significantly, not only the particular industry that I'm looking to go into, but also um, I've developed a network of people that I know that I can reach out to, so
Mhm.
that if I see a position that's available, I can reach out to them and ask them if they have an internal referral, if they know somebody they'd be willing to connect me to, or even just to learn about the culture of that particular organization, just to see if it might be a good fit for me. Um, I mean, I think the reality is that we all want an internal referral.
Right.
But if you can't get it, just to be able to speak to somebody else who can speak to the organization if they like it, how long people have been in that company. Are they looking to go in to jump ship? Are they happy? Right?
Right.
Because if you're looking to go into that particular organization, could you see yourself there? Would you be satisfied?
Mhm.
And I think I've been able to succeed by doing that in networking.
Okay, perfect. So to build off of networking, you posted the other day about how just your dog helped you even get an interview, and is so. How would you say that networking has just kind of opened those doors and opportunities even more? What would you say is the most unexpected opportunity that or insight piece of information that came to you due to your approach, being so active on social media, on LinkedIn, not just networking itself, but making yourself post as frequently as you do to get that engagement and build those relationships.
I, the getting the job through my dog, I think is hilarious. For those of you who haven't read it, I bumped into somebody who like an associate dean who works at a university, and we got to having a conversation. He has a cockapoo. I have a golden doodle, and we bumped into each other frequently. And then I asked if he would feel comfortable giving me his contact information, his LinkedIn, not on LinkedIn, but was willing to give me his email address. And then a couple of weeks later, forwarded me a job position. And had we not bumped into each other through our dogs, never would have happened.
Right.
Um, I think the biggest takeaway that I've learned from that particular situation is that you do not need to go to an official networking event.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, those are great. I'm not denying that. But every opportunity that you have to talk to somebody is a potential networking opportunity.
Right.
Are you in an elevator because you live in an apartment complex and somebody looks interesting for one reason or another? As soon as you say, comment on their shoes or something else, that's a networking opportunity. Are you at the dog park? That's a networking opportunity. Are you standing online at the grocery store? Because we all do. Um, that's a networking opportunity. So I feel as though there's so many different opportunities to take. It's just the question is, how far are you willing to go in that conversation?
Mm-hmm.
And the follow up and the follow through. I feel like that's one of the biggest challenges that I think I have. Um, and I'll speak only for myself on this, but that's the really hard part is not only being able to have that face to face time, but then if they offer from your networking conversation for you to check out their network or for you to follow up in a couple weeks or a couple months, are you going to actually remember to do that?
Yeah.
How do you stay relevant, especially if you're a job seeker or you're contemplating maybe changing jobs, right? How do you stay top of mind with somebody? I feel like that's one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. The other challenge is what we've talked about. How you handle the overall setbacks, the rejections. Getting the feedback from interviews. It can be few and far between. So how have you kind of taught yourself to do that? How do you handle, getting the letter that doesn't have the news that you were hoping for? And when feedback has been provided, what have you found to be beneficial? Because sometimes it's just, the boilerplate, someone with more experience, or they had X and you had Y and we decided to go with X. So, what has kind of stood out to you along the way as this was really helpful, just so other job seekers can try to get similar information if possible.
I'm probably not the best person to ask for this advice, just because as somebody pivoting sectors, I really haven't gleaned a lot of interviews. I've had interviews, but it's never gotten to the point where I've actually gotten constructive feedback from it. Um, the thing that I need to do for myself is as soon as the email comes in, just hit delete.
Mm,
It's closure. I don't necessarily need to read through it. I skim it sometimes,
sure.
take a deep breath, reset. If I need to take myself on a walk, if I need to treat myself to a piece of chocolate, whatever it might be, um, it's one no in a sea of potential yeses. Is it disappointing? 100%. Have I also spoken to people through networking who've gotten that no rejection and somehow found a way to get themselves back into contention for that role? 100%.
Mm,
Is it far and few between? Yes. But is it possible? 100%. So if you have that connection with a recruiter or a hiring manager, reach out if you don't understand what's going on in the process. And that's happened to me before, not in this job search, but in a previous job search where I was told I'd be moving on and I got a boilerplate rejection email. And I reached out directly to the supervisor for the role. And I was like, what is going on here? Of course, in a more polite way.
Right.
Um, and they were like, oh gosh, so sorry that happened. Complete and utter mistake. Right. Wouldn't have known unless I had reached out. So you could take a no as an opportunity to reset yourself, refocus, and get back in there. Or you can take it as an opportunity to question it, reach out to your contacts and your connections if you have it for that opportunity, and see what magic you can make.
Yeah, definitely. So, last question I have for you is kind of one that I ask anyone who joins me on the show, and it's the advice question. Obviously, pretty much every question I've asked you so far today has been asking you to give some sort of advice. But when people come to you and they're talking about their own search, they're venting their frustrations, what is typically that piece of advice that you find yourself giving more than others in terms of this has been helpful for me. I hope it's helpful for you type of situation.
That's a really good question. What piece of advice have I offered? Actually, after every networking call that I do, I have taken an Excel spreadsheet and I filled it out.
Mhm.
So I don't know that I have one particular piece of concrete information, but I have so many resources to offer. And that's what I enjoy doing. I enjoy giving people the job seeking resources that I've collected, whether it's a list of remote websites for remote positions, whether it's groups that they're looking to connect with other people in certain sectors, if they're in different places in their careers. I think, actually, come to think of it, the one piece of advice that a lot of people don't often consider is reaching out to their alumni association if they're affiliated with one.
Mhm.
Even for a certification, you never know what supports that they can offer you.
Right.
Um, it may not be you may have to pay for it. It really just depends how many years you are a postgraduate. But I've found, and I'm a couple of years postgraduate, that some of the resources that my universities have been able to offer have been fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, and I also, another interesting piece of information I would recommend is if you're the kind of person who looks for a job, for example, let's say for argument's sake, it's at Google. And you have listed two different universities. Let's say you've done your undergraduate and let's say you've done your master's. You can flip the universities that you have listed under your education section, and then have access to a totally different network.
Mhm.
So I would say that that is the best piece of advice that I can offer and have offered to a lot of different job seekers. If you're going to reach out to people and the connection is just your university, switch the order and you have access to an entire different network.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm so thankful that you took some time to join me on here. Like I said, that I've followed your posts. I send you messages when I connect to them, and it happens more frequently than I message. I just don't want to, message you multiple times a day. So, but I appreciate all the content that you're putting out. If you're not connected with Willa, make sure you do that. Join the network, find that support. Otherwise, hope you have a great week ahead. See you next Monday, and talk to you soon.